Hi, this is Yvette with Brown Capital Realty, ready to provide you with another 5-minute or less training session. This training session is going to be on how to prepare a contract to lease. So let me go ahead and share my screen and let's get started. Okay, so here we have a contract to lease. This form was merged in Form Simplicity, and this is a Florida form, okay? First section is parties. We have the landlord and the tenant, so we're going to enter that here. And it states that the parties agreed to execute a lease agreement no later than, today's the 14th, so I'll put the 18th here, for the property described below. The lease will include the terms set forth in paragraphs 3 through 12 of this contract to lease and other mutually agreeable terms. Landlord or tenant, if left blank, landlord will prepare the lease. 99.9% of the time, the lease is prepared by the landlord, so I'm going to check that off. The next section is in regards to the deposit. It says with the intention of entering into a lease with landlord, tenant has paid blank deposit to, we have to put the deposit holder, upon execution of the lease by both parties. The parties authorize the deposit holder to transfer the deposit according to the landlord's instructions, and landlord will credit the deposit to the money due under paragraph 5 below. So let's say, for instance, that the rent for this particular property is $2,500, and the potential tenant wants to do the deposit for the same amount. We will put $2,500, and then the deposit holder is the company who's holding the deposit. Section 3 is in regards to the property address. This is not a specific address, it's made up. The next section, it says the property will be unfurnished or furnished. So depending on your listing, you would just have to check off which one applies. For the sake of this training video, I'm going to put unfurnished. The property will be used for only residential purposes and occupied by only tenant and the following persons. So if there are going to be additional residents in the property, you would put their information there. Lease term. The lease will begin on, we'll just say August 1st and end on July 31st, 2023, which is 1 year. Section 5 is in regards to the money due before occupancy. In accordance with this paragraph, before occupying the property, tenant will not be entitled to move in or to keys to the property until all money due before occupancy has been paid. If no date is specified below, then funds will be due before occupancy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in the amounts here, and then you will see that the sum of what they have to pay will populate here in section 5. So the first line says first month's rent plus applicable taxes. Advance rent for the month of, I'll put August. Rent, $2,500. Due July 18th. Taxes is 0. Last month's rent. Due August 1st. Security deposit. If the security deposit is the same as 1 month's rent, I'm putting that there. If the owner wants 2 months security, then you, instead of being $2,500, it'd be $5,000. Security deposit for association. If there's a security deposit for the association, you apply that there. If there's a pet deposit, you put that underneath. These funds are typically due at the walk-in. But if there's another mutually agreeable time, then you would put that date there. The paragraph 2 deposit will be credited as follows. Typically, the deposit is credited as the first month's rent. If we would have left this entire section blank, it states here, if left blank, the deposit will be credited to the first month's rent Any remaining balance will be credited to the amounts due in the following order. First, security deposit, second, last month's rent, and third, advance rent. Rent payment, taxes and charges. Tenant will pay total rent for the lease term of. So what you do in this section is you take the amount of the rent, multiply it by 12 for the year, and then you put how much the tenant will be paying for the year in this section. They're paying taxes, you will place it here. In this case, they will not be. The next line is in regards to how they will be paying, whether they will be paying in full for the year or making monthly installments. For the sake of this training video, I will put that they will be paying monthly installments on the first, and they will be paying $2,500 a month. Since I did put a pet deposit in section 5, I will put pets are permitted, and I'll just say that they have a Shih Tzu. Smoking, most of the time, prohibited. Utility section. Tenant will pay for all utility services during the lease term, connection charges, and deposits for activating existing utility connections to the property except for. So this is basically stating, like, for instance, in a lot of condominiums, the tenants don't pay for water and sewer. So if this property, for this particular property, they didn't have to pay for the connection charges and deposits and activating those utilities, I would just put that here. And if they were responsible for it, then I wouldn't put anything here because it says except for, which means that the landlord agrees to provide those services at the landlord's expense. Section 10 is in regards to maintenance. Landlord will be responsible for maintenance and repair of the property except for blank, which tenant agrees to maintain and repair. If there are certain things that the landlord states that he will not be responsible for, you will put those in that section. But if not, you just put it non-applicable. Section 11 is in regards to the association approval. It's basically stating who's going to pay for the association application and when that association application is going to be turned in. 99% of the time, the tenant pays for the application. You put the amount of the application here. You would have to call the association or have a copy of the application to find out exactly how much the fee is. And then as far as when they should make the application, they should make the application no more than 2 days after they've received the lease. So let's say they receive the lease on, the 18th. I would say by the 20th, they should be turning in that association application. Association applications can take a week to a month in some cases. So the sooner the better. Section 12 is additional terms. So if there's any amendments that you would like to make to the lease, this is where you would enter those amendments. Section 14 is regarding service member status. If the potential tenant is a service member, you check yes. If they're not, then check no. If they are a service member, then the landlord must provide a written approval or denial of tenant's application within 7 days after receipt. If the tenant is denied, the landlord must provide a reason for the denial to the tenant. Section 16, you would fill out the prospective tenant's agent's name and their brokerage, and the prospective landlord's agent's name and their brokerage. The last page is basically for signatures, telephone, email addresses, and home addresses. I do not place any, whether I'm representing the tenant or the landlord, I do not put their address here, nor their telephone address. Yes, sometimes the email address will populate with the file, but that's as far as that goes. And that is it. That is how you complete a contract to lease. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.